Hello, this is Dr. Pratima. Let us start the module 2 today. I am the Assistant Professor in Physics, Institute of Aeronautical Engineering, Hyderabad. So, till my last previous lecture, we have completed the module 1 and we have also solved the problems of module 1. If you want to go and look back into those lectures, the links are provided in the description box below. You can have a look at them. Because this lecture will be a continuation of the previous unit for you. That is a Schrodinger wave equation and its application. So let us start with the topics which you are going to see in this video lecture. The first topic we'll be discussing, or let's look into the theories of the studies on metals, especially the conductivity. There are different scientists like Drude, Lorentz, and Sommerfeld who try to study how the electrical conductivity is happening in metals. They also try to see the behavior of the different materials and try to classify them and try to look into really how the behavior is differentiating between one and the another. But of course, they ended up in a few differences and failures, which led to the further research where Bloch led to one theorem where he was utilizing the wave function which was existing in the Schrodinger wave equation, and we could also bring out the Schrodinger wave equation, solve it out, and get a wave equation of the form psi of x is equal to under root of 2 by L into sine of n pi x by L, if you can recollect. So now holding on to this Bloch's theorem and applying it ahead to the metal structure and the movement of the free electrons, taking the help of the theories of the metals which were evolved, we will try to look into Kronig and Penny model. So this model will help us to look into how the bands are originating, how really an allowed band and a forbidden band are formed. So let's start with this video lecture by looking at the content of the theory. First was the classical free electron theory. This theory says that in metals there are large number of free electrons. The electrons are so free that they can move around any volume of that particular metal, just behaving like that of a gas molecule. As you know very well from your childhood, if you are asked to draw a gas molecule, you draw a box and draw distantly set atoms. That means that they are not closely packed, but they are very loosely packed, which means that they are very free to move. So he also said that Drude, and in 1900, and after 9 years ahead of Drude, Lorentz also was there. So these physicists were looking into this metals and the behavior of the electrons in the metals and how this behavior of the electrons can assist to the electrical conductivity. So a part of the free moving behavior and they obeying the kinetic theory or principles of the kinetic theory of gases, they also were able to understand that these free electrons can collide with the positive ions, which are distributed in the form of a lattice. Lattice in the sense equally distributed positive ions. So they were also trying to understand that it's not only with the positive ions, but even the two electrons or one electron with the other few freely moving electrons can also collide with one another, but there will not be any loss of energy with the colliding electron. That means the collisions are perfectly elastic collisions. So these are the postulates, I can say, of the classical free electron theory, and it moved ahead saying that the electron field, if it is applied to the metal, the free electrons accelerate because of the applied electric field, but in the opposite direction of the applied electric field. So moving ahead with, if you look into the quantum free electron theory, it says that, of course, the electrons are very free, but coming to the electrical conduction, they move in a constant potential because of the existence of the positive ions in the metal lattice. This constant potential is not mentioned in the classical free electron theory. That means the quantum free electron theory was trying to make an attempt to look into, to quantize the potential of the electron when it is moving across the positive ion lattice. And he also was trying to say here, in the sense here, Sommerfeld was also trying to see the nature of the electrons when it is moving, taking the concept of the de Broglie, that they exist, the wave nature, and he was also able to look into the velocity, and of course he was also taking the credit of the Fermi-Dirac distribution function, where they go into the statistical distribution of the electrons, taking the principle of the Pauli's exclusion principle, how the electrons are distributed in different energy levels. And the laws of the electrons due to the interaction of the free electron and the free electron was also taken into consideration, whereas here it says that there is no loss of energy and the collisions are perfectly elastic. So these are the major differences between the classical free electron theory and the quantum free electron theory. So, but they both carry their own merits and failures. Like, let's look into the classical free electron theory, which I have mentioned here as CFET. Don't get confused. This, of course, gave a very good explanation of the Ohm's law, where it could verify the Ohm's law and in metals, and it could also explain the electrical and thermal conductivities of the metals, deriving the Weidmann-Franz law, which says that at lower temperatures, the ratio of the thermal conductivity to the electrical conductivity is proportional to the temperature. And it could also explain the optical properties of the metals, but it carried its own failures, where it was not able to explain the temperature dependence of the electrical conductivity and the specific heats of the solids. And though it was deriving the Weidmann-Franz law, it couldn't give a proper explanation of the dependence on this conductivity and the temperature. And coming to the distribution of the materials as semiconductors and insulators and conductors, this theory failed in explaining why and how the electrical conductivity for semiconductors and insulators are less than that of the conductors. So holding on to this particular concept, where they failed to really, both of them have failed to really understand the semiconductors and insulators and the behavior of them, of theirs, a part of the conductors, we can go ahead to Bloch's theorem. But before that, let us see what is quantum free electron theory too. It has given a lot of beautiful results where they have explained the specific heat, and they could explain how the photoelectric effect works and how the Compton effect works and black body radiation happening, and giving out the mathematical expressions of the thermal conductivity of metals too. But this quantum free electron theory was not able to distinguish again the metals, semiconductors and the insulators, especially with respect to, they should be able to explain taking the behavior of the electrons, because the electrons' behavior as a wave was into existence, and they could have taken it and explained it more further, but they failed to do so, and holding on to this behavior and carried forward, Bloch could give us good results by considering that this electron is there in the positive ions, which are like a lattice, and hence he expected that they are having periodic potentials due to the positive ions in a metal. I will explain this point in the coming slides. So if this particular electron, though it is experiencing periodic potentials, when it moves along the ions, it will experience varying potentials. And this potential of an electron at the positive ion will be zero, and it will be maximum in between the two ions. These 3 points, I can say that they were more clearly understood when Bloch considered an electron. Bloch is the name of a physicist. Okay, so B-L-O-C-H. Okay, so B-L-O-C-H. So he was considering that an electron is passing along a line, though the positive ions are arranged as a lattice. He considered that the electron is traveling along a line across the positive ions. Okay, you can understand this better if you see here. So these are the positive ions. Okay, arranged. How are they arranged? Just like your matrix, how you write in your mathematics, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, like rows and columns. So you call them as a lattice. You know it very well. So in this, they have considered one electron. Just let me think that these are my positive ions across the line. If I take like this, this is across the line if I have to consider. So taking this point into consideration. So what will happen to this electron? When it is at the positive ion, it will experience force so that it will not be able to move. Hence, it will be zero. Which will be zero? The potential of the electron will be zero here. Now, don't think anything about these positive ions in order to understand better the potential of this electron as it moves. So once it is moving away from this positive ions and coming here, what will happen? It is away from the vicinity of the positive ions. So because it is away from the positive ions, it will experience a bit of freedom compared to the earlier stage, and hence it experiences a maximum potential compared to this place. So here it will be maximum, whereas here it will be minimum. And again, when it comes moving like this and comes here, again it will be minimum. Okay, and again, because, and you should be able to understand why, in spite of the minimum potential, how is it again gaining the potential so that it can move? There are again a cloud of electrons around like if I consider a positive ion, the electrons are surrounded like this, like a cloud. Okay, so these electrons will try to because the collisions with the electrons also will happen, and this electron will try to move ahead, and when it comes here, it will experience a maximum potential. And once when it comes here again, it will experience a minimum potential. In the middle, a maximum, and here this is a minimum. So that is what I have mentioned here in this point. At the positive ions, the minimum is nothing but it is zero. Here it is zero. Here it is zero. Here it is zero. You can take it like as if like it is like attracted and packed with this positive ion. So this variation of the potential, this varying potentials, if I picturize it, it will be similar to that of my periodic potential well. You have seen how we have seen the particle in a one-dimensional potential box. You have seen how the potential will be varying. So now it is, I can say that this is an extension of the periodic potential well. There you have just seen a well in which the electron is there. But here, in spite of this electron having certain potential here, there is also a potential which is barrier here, which is at these particular positive ions. So Bloch, holding on to this concept, he applied this concept of the potential of this electron when it is moving in a crystalline solid to be periodic, and tried even to consider the Coulomb potential, and he tried to give a potential energy function. Okay, so that the Schrodinger wave equation can be of the form V of R is equal to V of R plus Rn. So V of R is, I can say that R is nothing but which can be exposed in terms of x, y, and z directions as xi plus yj plus zk. And Rn is an arbitrary translation vector of the crystallographic lattice. Crystallographic lattice means if A1, A2, A3 are the unit lattice vectors, like A, B, C, when you take a crystal along the crystallographic axis, if you take A, B, and C, just like that, these are A1, A2, and A3, then Rn can be expressed in terms of an arbitrary translation vector by considering this A1, A2, and A3 in terms of this formulae. So we will also look into this Rn ahead. So holding on to this potential energy function, which is at R, will be equal to any R which is applied when applied with an arbitrary translation vector. In the sense, even if you apply anything which is related to the lattice vectors also, it should be the same. Okay, hope you have understood this. So this is Bloch's theorem. You can look how it evolved into a beautiful formulae. So he said that the wave function which is in the Schrodinger wave equation, if you have recollected the Schrodinger wave equation, it is d square psi by dx square. So what is psi there? It is psi of x if the electron is traveling in the x direction. So here, if the electron, you can take it r in the sense you can take it in terms of 3 dimensions, then it can be expressed as a product of the plane wave and a function uk of r. This uk of r will be giving you the periodicity of the lattice, or I can say that this is a factor which is depending more on the periodicity of the lattice, and hence you can write it as uk of r is equal to uk of r plus rn, because in the previous slide I have showed you rn is in terms of the lattice vectors, and thus it is nothing but something which is related to the periodicity of the lattice. And this electron wave functions, if they are of this form, if they are of this form, then you can call them as block functions. And this formulae, if you are able to explain any wave function in the form of a product of a plane wave and a function uk of r which represents the periodicity of the lattice, then you can call that wave function as a block function. This block function is not at all periodic, but because of the component which is representing the plane wave, and if you take the probability, what is probability? If psi is the function, wave function, how could you take the probability? You take it as psi star. So psi star is nothing but mod of psi square. Okay, so in terms of the wave vector you are writing, hence you write it as psi k, and in terms of 3 dimensions when you take it as psi k of r whole square. So this has periodicity. Okay, you should understand that the block function doesn't have periodicity, but because of the plane wave component, if you take the probability, that will have the periodicity. And if you apply slowly, you will be also getting out a beautiful property of the wave function. What is that property? If you take psi k, okay, if you take psi k of r and you add the resultant component, you can write it as a plane wave which is having this translation vector multiplied by the wave function, which is r alone. It means that even when you apply a wave equation in terms of the translation vector, that means if you consider the periodicity of the lattice too, you can arrive at a block function, which is again the formulae, which is the product of the wave and the periodicity function. So it is like you can understand this now in a better way. So till now, whatever I have told you, it might be a bit confusing for you, but I want to tell you my attempt was only to bring you the essence of the pure form of block equations, how they came out. But for your curriculum, how should you write it in your exams? If you can write them also, it's fine, but what should you really write in your exams is this, according to your curriculum, this slide. Okay, please have a look into it in addition to the previous slides. So if you are taking the potential, V of x can be written as V of x plus a. Why? Because a is nothing but the lattice vector. You are taking a as maybe the lattice vector along x-axis. So the potential at x should be equal to the potential of x plus a. Okay, psi k of x, as I have told you according to block function, can be written as uk of x times e to the power of ikx. Okay, so if you have to write it in terms, this is in x, along x direction. If you want to take it in 3 dimensions, you can write it as psi k of r is equal to uk of r into e to the power of ikr. As of now, let me take it as equation number 1. So I want to have a look into this uk of r, which is the periodicity. For that, let me consider a string along in the lattice of the crystal. Let me consider a string which has n number of atoms just distributed along the line, n number of atoms along the lattice A. Okay, lattice vector A. So I can take it like, I can picturize it like this, just for your picturization. Okay, for your idea, sorry. Okay, along A, these are 4, like that it goes on. So let me think that there are n number of atoms. So if this is the case, uk is what? It is periodicity. It represents periodicity. So if uk is representing the periodicity, then uk at x should be the same, or should be the same means should be equal to x at n number of atoms along the lattice vector A. Okay, this should be also the same. Take it as equation number 2. Okay, so now I want to take this equation number 1 and apply to this picture. What will happen to equation number 1 applied to this picture? Psi k of x plus na is equal to what? Just in the place of x, you replace it as x plus na. So you get it as uk of x plus na into e to the power of ik of x plus na. Right. So I can write it as uk of x plus na into e to the power of m plus n, can be written as e to the power of m into e to the power of n. So e to the power of ikx into e to the power of ikna. E to the power of ikna. So, but from equation number 2, what is uk of x plus na? It is uk of x. So I want to write it as uk of x into e to the power of ikx into e to the power of ikna from equation number 2. Okay, from this equation number 2, I have exchanged these two. So now, what is then uk of x? Then what is this uk of x into ikx? It is nothing but this one, equation number 1. So this can be written as psi k of x into e to the power of ikna. So what is the left hand side? Psi k of x plus na is equal to psi k of x times e to the power of ikna. This is a very beautiful condition which came out from the Bloch's function or the Bloch's condition. This is another Bloch's condition. I should say like this. This is another Bloch's condition coming out from the Bloch's theorem. What is it? See, try to compare one with this. Psi k of x can be written as uk of x, the periodicity vector, the periodicity factor in terms of x, and e to the power of ikx. But here you are taking Na, where you are changing the periodicity considering n number of atoms. Then also it is written as the same function in terms of x times e to the power of ikna, not the periodicity of x like here. Okay, so this is a different condition which evolved out of the Bloch's theorem. Okay, so 1 and 2 are the beautiful results of the Bloch's theorem. Now let us see what will be the probability for a particle to exist at x, and to exist at x plus na. How will you gather the probability? You know it from the Born's approximation. You should take mod psi square. Mod psi square is nothing but what? You should take mod psi square. It's nothing but psi star. Right? So let's look how to look into the psi star, taking both of them. For that, let me take psi of, I have this with me now. So let me take psi k of x plus na into psi k star of x plus na. This should be equal to what? You know from equation number 2, what is psi k of x plus na? What is it? Psi k of x into e to the power of ikna. Okay. Dot. What is this? Psi k star. Psi k star means psi k star of x plus na means psi k star of x plus na will become, now if you write from here, psi k star of x into e to the power of minus ikna, the complex conjugate. Okay, so now if you simplify this RHS, what will you end up in? You will end up in psi k of x into psi k star of x, e to the power of ikna, and e to the power of minus ikna will become e to the power of 0, that is 1. So what did you end up in? Psi k of x plus na into psi k star of x plus na you have ended up like psi k of x into psi k star of x. So what does this mean? The probability at x is equal to the probability of x plus na. If you take at x and if you take at x plus na, it will be the same. It is equal to. So the periodicity, if you are writing the block function in terms of the periodicity, then the probability of finding the electron at x should be the same even if you take n number of electrons along a axis and find it out there. It should be the same. So the existence of the electron is the same all throughout the lattice. So this is a very good derivation of Bloch's theorem which you have to understand. So if you can relate this with my previous slides, it will be the same. Okay, so mostly we have considered this where psi k of r. Okay, I have told everything in terms of r. Okay, so moving on ahead, holding on to this Bloch's theorem and the consideration of the electron in the vicinity of the positive ions and apart or the absence of the positive ions, let's understand how really the potential energy will vary, and we'll also try to understand how this will evolve as a square wave potential. See, this is the positive ion lattice, the continuation of my previous diagram. And if you take positive ions separated by equal distance, and if you are taking V of x, so what will happen to V of x at infinity, like at surface, V of x is going as infinity. It will have infinite potential. The electron will have infinite potential. But when it is at the positive ion, it is having zero. It is having zero potential. And as it moves up, as it moves away from the positive ion, what is happening? The potential is increasing. It's rising. And once it comes at the center, it is away from the vicinity of the positive ions. So the potential is maximum. And once it moves towards the positive ions, again it is decreasing and falls to zero. We can even predict it to be zero. And again, when it is moving away from the positive ions, it will increase and reach a maximum. And once it as it approaches the next positive ion, it will decrease. And as it comes nearer to the positive ion, it falls to zero. And as it again moves away from this third positive ion, it will start increasing and reaches a maximum when it is away from the third and the fourth. And once it is reaching the fourth positive ion, it will decrease and so on. And even as it goes ahead, and if you reach the surface, it is going to infinity. That's how, like, the quantum free electron theory was trying to understand that though the electron is very free, it's not able to pop out of the metal surface because it is experiencing a infinite potential at the metal surface. So this is how you can understand the potential energy to be minimum at the positive ion sides and maximum between the two positive. It's very easy to understand. Now comes the time where you have to understand it in terms of a potential well and a potential barrier. Where is the potential well? Where is the potential barrier? Okay, so now here what is happening? There is a decrease. Okay, so here the potential is zero. And here there is an increase. And here there is a decrease. And here there is an increase. Okay, so now taking this here, the potential is zero. So let me consider this as region 1 and let me consider this as region 2. Okay, and we have the limits, like let me take it as 0, then this will be A and this will be B. Let me consider it as B, and because B is on the other side, let me take it as minus B. Okay. So now moving on ahead with this particular diagram, don't worry, even if you are not able to see this diagram, you can see it in the next slide. Okay, so this is the diagram. So this is along the distance of the positive ions as you move along the x direction. This is the variation of the potential. Okay, this is region 1 where V is equal to 0, and this is the region 2 where it has maximum potential, that is V. So if you apply the Schrodinger wave equation, So what is Schrodinger wave equation? D square psi by dx square plus 2m by h bar square into e minus v psi equal to 0. So the same here. And you need not worry what is psi. It is along x direction, so it is psi of x. It is time independent wave equation. So d square psi by dx square plus 2m e by h bar square into psi equal to 0 for what? For region 1. For region 1. For region 1, I have just written in terms of x 0 less than x less than a. Okay. And for region 2, this is for region 2. Because it is experiencing a potential V, you have to consider V. In the first region, V is equal to 0. If V is 0, this will become 0. You are left over with 2ME. Whereas here you have to consider as V. Hence, you have to take it as E minus V. Okay, for region 2, which is represented as minus B less than X less than 0. So now, in order to simplify the wave equation, so that you can proceed ahead to gather the general solution, you have to take this 2me by h bar square as alpha square. If you can recall, we have done the same for the particle in a one-dimensional potential box. Again, write the condition for 0 less than x less than a. And taking that V0 is greater than E. Okay, considering that V0 is greater than E, then you can write this as minus beta square into psi for minus b less than x less than 0. And these two solutions, the solutions for these two equations, the general solutions can be written, and they can be again subjected to different boundary conditions, just like how you have done for the particle in a one-dimensional potential box. For each wave equation here, Schrodinger equation, whichever you got in terms of alpha square and beta square, you have to apply those boundary conditions for the potential well and the that is the region 1 and the region 2. Okay, between 0 and a and minus b and 0. Okay, you have to apply the boundary conditions and then solve out for all the boundary conditions, just like you have done for your particle in a potential well. Okay, and you have to take into consideration certain conditions in this electron's behavior in the crystal lattice, which is not needed for you in your curriculum, and you will end up in this equation. This equation you need to remember. Okay, P sin alpha A by alpha A plus cos alpha A is equal to cos Ka. So what is P here? P is mb by h bar square into V0 A. V0 is nothing but it is the potential which is experienced a part of the potential box by the electron. Okay, so this mass of the electron and this B is the width of that area which is not experiencing zero potential, and this is h square into V0 A. A is the lattice. So this will give you the scattering power of the potential barrier. Okay, so V0 is nothing but the barrier strength, because that's the potential which is exhibited by the electron in that particular area, which is known as barrier. Hence, you call it as a barrier strength. So this equation, if I take it as 4, and if I take this as these two as 3, then those two conditions can be satisfied, or they can have a solution, not satisfied. They can have a solution only if 4 is satisfied. And this 4, you can see that this shows a relationship between alpha and the wave vector k. How? Let us see. If you take alpha a values, for every value of alpha a, you will have different values of the LHS. And if you see the RHS is having what? Cos. So the RHS values should fall between -1 to +1. And there is something in the middle which is what? There is something in the middle which is equal to. So if this equal to has to be satisfied, then all the values of LHS should be the same as the RHS. Now you have the RHS values to be -1 to +1. So for all the values of alpha A for different scattering powers P, it should fall in between -1 to +1. Am I right or wrong? because there is equal to sign in the middle. So in order to check that, take alpha A values of for pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, and minus pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, minus 3 pi, and take the LHS, P sine alpha A by alpha A plus cos alpha A along the x-axis. So for different values of alpha A, if you take for any particular scattering power, for example, here is the diagram for you for the scattering power of 3 pi by 2. Okay, you are able to see that there is a curve. There is a curve here. And if you see the curve, like if I have to show it normally, this is alpha A, and you are taking LHS for different values of pi, 2 pi, and 3 pi, and the same on the other side, minus pi, minus 2 pi, and minus 3 pi, and you are getting a curve like this. Like this. And you have a limit here. What is that limit? The limit is minus 1 to plus 1, which will be there on the LHS. So draw a line at that particular limit. Plus 1 and minus 1. Okay, so that's what is given here, plus 1 and minus 1. And you will observe that this equal to sign is not established. It's not satisfied. Why is it not satisfied? The curve is not fitting between minus 1 and plus 1. But you can see that there are some regions which are satisfying this condition. What are those regions? If you can draw a line from here and take this area, you can see that this zone fits in between plus 1 and minus 1. The same at 2 pi. There is here and here. If you draw with your scale, you can find an area which is satisfying this condition, which is fitting between minus 1 and plus 1. So the same you can see on either sides for different values of alpha A. And you can see that as alpha A increases, the allowed energy levels, that is, why am I calling the allowed energy levels for this shaded regions? These are allowed. Why? Because they are satisfying this minus 1 to plus 1. So that means these are the values which are possessed by the electrons in terms of the energy. Alpha A will give you the energy. Okay. Whereas P is the scattering power. Okay. So as alpha A is increasing, the electrons are gaining more and more energy. Okay. So thus the allowed energy levels are increasing, and you can see that in terms of the area of the shaded part. Okay, so now what will happen if with increase in alpha A, the allowed states of for an electrons are increasing, and what will happen to the strength of the potential barrier? What will happen to the strength of the potential barrier? In my previous picture, it was the curve which is falling like this. Okay, so now if at all, if the allowed bands are increasing, what is happening to the potential barrier? Potential barrier in the sense, it will diminish, right? Because the potential barrier is against the allowed energy levels. So that's what the potential barrier is, something like an opposite to the allowed energy level. So if that is increasing, this will decrease. So if you are trying to increase the scattering potential, power of the electron, that is P, that is the LHS, what will happen? The curve which is like this will try to become like this and like this. So there is a difference between this curve and the previous curve. Okay, so if I think that if I try to understand this, it is because the decrease of the allowed energy and the increase of the forbidden energies will happen. If this is the case, what will happen to the extreme condition? Extreme condition in the sense, if P is infinity. So first the curve was like this, and as the scattering power increases, it is like this. Okay, so if I still more increase it, how will it go? It will end up like this. Okay, maybe like this. and if I still take it to minus, then that's it. Maybe it will go somewhere and hit like this. Is hitting like this, and now as it goes to infinity, where will I end up? I can't see any point on the x-axis, but it will come as a straight line. That's what it's written here as. As the p is becoming larger and larger, the resultant wave obtains a steeper variation between -1 and +1. Okay, so just like if you're taking your scale, first it will be like this when you draw, and later your scale will go like this. That's how your scale have to move when you draw the diagrams. If you have to understand in terms of drawing the diagrams, as the scattering power will move, and it will end up in a straight line. It doesn't mean that your curve is not hitting the x-axis, but it will hit, but because it is at infinity, you cannot see. That is the fact. Okay, so that's at extremes, you are finding the curve to end up as a straight line. So when p tends to 0, what will happen? When p tends to 0, in the sense there's no scattering power at all, then all the energies will be possessed by the electron itself, and it will end up in a curve which satisfies the condition. That is p sine alpha a by alpha a plus cos alpha a is equal to cos ka. That's what your final equation was, right? P sine alpha a by alpha a plus cos alpha a is equal to cos ka. So if p is equal to 0, this entire term will be 0. You are left over with cos and cos, that is -1 to +1 will be equal to -1 to +1. So for different values of alpha a, if you take this should be fitting in between -1 to +1. So that's the mathematical calculations of the blocks, or the application of the Bloch's theorem to the design of the electron's behavior in the crystal lattice, was able to end up saying that if the scattering power of the electron is 0, then this will end up in the allowed bands all joining together to form a continuum, that is almost a packed allowed energy levels forming a band. Okay, so this is how this doesn't end up here, but it will move ahead to the formation of the bands, and there will also be a diagram where you can see the variance of the energy of the crystal in terms of its wave vector, and when you draw it, you can see the Brillouin zones, which will be helping you to understand the forbidden bands and the allowed bands. And that picture will help you to visualize how these allowed bands and forbidden bands will be varied in different materials, ending up in the separation or the classification, not separation, the classification of the materials as semiconductors, conductors, and insulators. So, thanking you. I wish I'll see you in my next class, where we will be seeing how the band formation will originate and how the materials will end up as semiconductors, conductors, and insulators. Thank you and wishing you all the best. See you in my next video lecture.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.